FXation, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. And in this video guys, what I want to do is I want to share with you what I think are the best days to actually do some day trading on if you're trading Forex. So let's go ahead and let's jump right into the video and let me show you what I look at to determine what days am I going to trade and what days am I actually going to skip. So without further ado, let's get this started. All right, guys, so the first thing that I do is I look at the calendar of events coming up. So obviously these calendar of events will have impact on whether or not the market moves very fast, like 100 pips in 15 minutes, or if it slowly moves gradually how we want it to move. What I try to do is I go ahead and I go through the filter and I basically only care about when orange and red events are happening on the chart. And then I obviously take out China because we don't trade that. And then here we go. So here we can kind of get a breakdown as to what days something is happening that actually matters, that's important, that's going to induce a lot of volatility and a lot of movement into the market. The first thing that I do is I look at the full week coming up. So let's just say this next week coming up where we have right here. So as you can see, there's nothing on Monday, there's nothing on Tuesday. When I look at that and I see that there are no red events on Monday or Tuesday, these days for me are going to be great trading days for me because I know that there is no induction of volatility via news events that's going to cause the market to go one way or another. Okay. Now, if I look at like Wednesday, for example, Wednesday, we have CPI news for USD. So for me, automatically knowing this, like that day, I won't be trading the US session. I'd only trade the London session. Same thing for Thursday. Thursday, I'm not going to trade the US session. I'm going to focus more on the London session. Okay. And so as we go through the week, here you'll see Friday at 2 a.m. we have GDP news for pound, right? So that tells me for me that I probably don't want to trade that London session on Friday because this induces volatility into the markets. And the problem with it is the fact that the volatility can go in either direction. Okay. Market makers can choose to use this news however they want to. They could choose to dump the market or raise the market however they choose. And that's the problem. Because whenever you are in day trading and you're wanting to use a strategy, right? The strategy whatever strategy that you're using is supposed to give you an advantage. Okay. Now, whenever news is introduced into that equation, okay, we know that market makers use that news to move prices to wherever they want them to move. The problem with that is I have seen news events that have come out good for the currency, which should add strength to the currency, and it actually does the complete opposite. And so I know that when these type of events are going on, I don't want to be in the market. I don't want to be looking for trades whenever there's these type of events that are happening, because instead of you having the advantage, it goes back to basically a 50-50 proposition. To me, 50-50 proposition is just like gambling. So why would I do that with my own money? To me, it just doesn't make sense. Now, if you want to try to find a trade after the news events, that's going to be way better than trying to trade the news events itself. Okay, so for this week specifically coming up, I know that I could trade both sessions Sunday, Monday, Tuesday as well. Wednesday, I'll just trade London. Thursday, I'll just trade London, and then Friday, I just won't trade at all. Okay, because we have news both in the US and during the London session, so I just won't trade at all. All right, let me give you another example. Following week after that, you could see that Sunday, Monday, Sunday, no news. That's cool. You could trade that. But then you have USD news at 8:30. That's not a big deal. You can actually trade during that. That's not going to impact the market too much. I know that this right here, monetary policy for AUD, is definitely not going to be something that you want to trade AUD news on, because that's going to go absolutely berserk crazy on AUD. So for Monday, I could trade both sessions. Now let's go into Tuesday. On Tuesday, you can see we have CPI news for CAD, right? So we know for sure CAD is going to have volatile movement right here because of that. So for me, I'm not trading any CAD news. I'm not trading anything that has a CAD in it for Tuesday. I can trade Tuesday's London session for sure because we don't have any news, which is great. Okay. And then during the US session, if we need to, we could trade USD pairs or any pair that doesn't have a CAD in it. Okay, because this is going to move all the CAD pairs no matter what they're attached to. Same thing on AUD news. AUD news typically comes at nighttime. So for me, I don't trade during this time, so it doesn't matter to me. NZD news is the same thing. It always comes out at 9:30, 10 p.m. at night, and this is Eastern Standard Time. So I know that this is when you see the huge ranges, the huge Asian ranges that pop up on AUD or NZD, is because of this right here. Every single time it happens, okay? So on Tuesday, I'm good with trading US pairs that don't have a tie to Canadian dollar, and then also London. Wednesday, I see that CPI news is coming out for pound pairs, so not trading that at all. And then also we could see that USD is coming out with core retail sales, FOMC. I do not want to be anywhere near any of this stuff during the US session. So for me, on Wednesday, I ain't trading the US session. I may look at Euro pairs on Wednesday during the London session. That's about it. But typically when you have FOMC news during the US session, you're just literally going to have sideways movement that's just leading up to the FOMC meeting. So I wouldn't trade Wednesday. Honestly, it could be like an off day. Would be a good day to trade London, and you could trade US because this is not going to have that much of a deep impact on it, on the news. Same thing on Friday, retail sales, core sales. These are all fine. You could trade on Friday. So how I find out what days I can trade completely, to me, depends on the actual news releases that are coming up for that specific week. Okay, so I solely base and schedule my trading days based on this. If there's crazy stuff happening, like for me, I just avoid it. I don't want to be anywhere in that. Okay, there's going to be other days that I could trade that have no news, that I know markets aren't going to be, the news isn't going to basically be used to manipulate the markets. And that's my point, is that I don't want to be in the market when news is being introduced that's going to manipulate the market even more. Like the market's already manipulated enough. The news is just an added fuel to the fire. Okay. And so I don't want to be anywhere near that. So let me show you an example of literally yesterday, where we had GDP monetary policy, right, for 7 o'clock. So here's what I mean by I don't want to trade the news, or I don't want to trade that day, those pairs, for this reason. Let me go to the charts and show you. All right, so if we go back to pound, look at all the pound pairs. This is what that monetary policy did, right? On all the pound pairs, did the exact same thing. Anything that had pound in it did the exact same move. It didn't matter what it was doing. It didn't matter what part of the cycle it was in, nothing, blah, blah, blah. It didn't matter. All of them did the exact same move, right? Even Euro pound did the opposite, obviously, because the pound's on the back end of it. So this is what I'm talking about, okay? This is why I do not want to be involved with news, because all the pound pairs, no matter what they're tied to, are going to do the exact same move over and over and over again, right? So for me, it just doesn't make any sense. And you can see that leading up to that news event, there's nothing there to trade anyway. There's no pattern. It's just waiting for the news there to be released so it could, it could drop or raise the prices, right? So for me, it's a gambling situation. Why am I going to trade in a gambling? It just doesn't make sense to me. Why you would want to trade and lose the advantage and have it a 50-50 proposition to trade the news like that. To me, it just doesn't make sense. What you could have done is you could have looked at other pairs. You could have looked at, NZD pairs or AUD pairs instead. But for those news events, like, I would just avoid this completely. Okay? Whenever a big news event like monetary policy is happening for pound pairs or for euro pairs or for USD pairs, like, nothing happens before. It's just completely, there's no setups to trade beforehand anyways, because literally everything is waiting on that news to be released. Okay? If you want to try to trade it after the news is released, then go ahead. Go ahead and try to trade it after. But definitely before, there's nothing there to trade anyway, so just avoid it. Okay? Remember this, that you're here to trade for months, years. We're not here for one day. We're not worried about tomorrow or next week. Right? We want to be you want to be consistent throughout an extended period of time. That could be months, years. Okay? Because you're trying to make a living out of this. And I can promise you something, that you're not going to make a living out of this by trying to figure out how to trade news like this. Okay? All the gains that you've made in, let's say, the previous week or something like that, you're literally going to give them up in 15 minutes. Because this right here is literally gambling. Because you don't have the advantage. All right? So pay attention, guys, to the calendar. All right? Pay attention to the calendar. Filter out the stuff, right? You only care about red or orange, and that's it. Okay? And then let that load, and then let this be your guide to help you determine what sessions and what days you're actually going to trade. And then most importantly, what pairs you're going to trade. If you look at this right here, like Monday, August the 22nd, you're going to have PMI news for both pound and euro. Probably not going to trade that day, at least London session, right? You can trade the US session instead. This right here, same thing. PMI news for USD. So you're more likely to trade London session that day. All this right here, all this really is not going to impact news at all, so you could trade easily this entire day just fine, no problem. GDP news, probably not going to want to trade that at 8:30. Especially, you have to understand that these specific things before wasn't a big deal. GDP, PMI, none of that stuff was a big deal. The only reason it's a big deal now is because we're in a recession. Okay? We're in a recession. That's why it's a big deal right now. But before, this wasn't a big deal. PMI news, nobody cared about any of that stuff because we were fine as an economy, as a world economy, we were okay. But once COVID hit, and then now, we're about to enter recession, inflation's at record high and stuff like that, all this stuff matters now. All of this matters every single week because it tells us, it lets us know, are we getting worse or are we getting better? And so that's why it has a huge impact right now on how the currency markets behave. And so because of that, I don't want to be in that. So please do your own research on these news events. Get to know these news events because these news events are going to matter whether or not your advantage is there or it gets taken away by the news events. All right, guys, I hope that this video brought you some value, guys, and to understanding how I select what days, what sessions, and what pairs I'm going to actually trade that day based on the upcoming news. All right, guys, if you need more help with our strategy or you want to join us in our next class, we are hosting our first master class coming up on August 22nd. This class is probably going to be the best class out of all of them because of the material that's brand new that's being released in this class. All of the new material being released is years of backtesting data that we've been collecting over the years that have helped us determine what are the best things about the strategy, what are the best patterns, what goes into the best patterns. Everything you could possibly think of is going to be in this masterclass. So hopefully, guys, I hope that we will see you in the next masterclass. It starts August 22nd. The link is in the description. And like always, guys, trade safe and trade consistently.